Grand Rising. My name is Tracy Lloyd McCurdy, Executive Director of the Black Belt Justice Center and co-organizer of the Black Farmers Appeal Cancel Pig for Debt campaign. Today, I will be co-moderating our press event with my dear colleague, Lawrence Lucas, President Emeritus of the USDA Coalition of Minority Employees and representative of the Justice for Black Farmers group. It is important that this legislative feat of full debt cancellation for our Pigford legacy farmers and farmers of color in the American Rescue Plan Act is put in historical context. The origin of this legislative win goes back 22 years to the disastrous implementation of the Pigford v. Glickman class action racial discrimination lawsuit. Our legacy farmers tirelessly organized and filed a lawsuit against the USDA for decades of well-documented pervasive discrimination in the delivery of loans and subsidies to Black farmers, as well as failure to investigate these widespread complaints. Our legacy farmers demanded three things to restore their livelihoods and their Black agricultural land base: debt cancellation, land, and monetary compensation for economic harm and loss of generational wealth. Unfortunately, the lawsuit left many of our legacy farmers in unconscionable debt with USDA and economic ruin. Only 4.8% of the 1 billion settlement went to debt cancellation. At the time of the lawsuit, 1.5 million acres of Black farmland were in USDA inventory. However, only one Black farmer, William Miller of Marshallville, Georgia, received his land back under the lawsuit. Moreover, the $50,000 cash payments were based on the cash payments to the Tuskegee experiment survivors, not actual economic harm. North Carolina A&T State University professor Dr. Donald McDowell's research findings that it would cost at least $250,000 for Black farmers to re-enter the agriculture industry were disregarded. Currently, Black farmers comprise 2% of all US farmers, and European Americans own over 98% of the farmland. Debt cancellation for our legacy farmers is a necessary step in the long journey to achieve restorative land justice for Black farmers in this country. For the last 20 years, many of our elder farmers have pooled their resources together and filed complaints in federal court pro se, representing themselves to stall foreclosure proceedings. At this time, we don't know how many foreclosures have occurred since 1999. We would like to recognize the leadership and dedication of Senators Reverend Raphael, Warnock, Cory Booker, and Elizabeth Warren in shaping the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act, the Justice for Black Farmers Act, and a robust policy framework to dismantle institutional discrimination within USDA. We also want to acknowledge the tremendous contributions of Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow and Chairman David Scott. At this time, we will hear brief remarks from Lawrence Lucas. For the first section of our press event, we will hear from our distinguished US senators. For the second section, we will hear from our Pigford legacy farmers. There will be a brief Q&A after each section. This press event will be recorded. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And let's get started in the program. My name is Lawrence Lucas, President Emeritus of the USDA Coalition of Minority Employees, and represent Justice for Black Farmers. The USDA Coalition of Minority Employees consider the Emergency Relief Act for Farmers of Color of 2021 to be the most pivotal civil rights legislation since the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The USDA Coalition has been engaged in the struggle on behalf of Black farmers and USDA employees since 1994. The Act of 2021 will address discrimination at USDA by creating, which is most important, a systemic changes to USDA and its organization once and for all. By way of history, the USDA Coalition of Minority Employees and a number of other Black farmer organizations engage a number of candidates running for president to assist in understanding the historical discrimination within USDA and its racist history, Black land loss, and the loss of generations of wealth to Black farmers. In early 2019, Senator Elizabeth Warren, along with Senator Booker, Senator Gillibrand, drafted the Justice for Black Farmer Act of 2020. The bill's comprehensive nature was gratifying to read as it addressed racism, complaint abuse, inequities within USDA, the provision of debt relief, and the opportunity to secure acres of farm, and policies that will address civil rights processing and administration throughout the Department of Agriculture. Senators Reverend Raphael and Senator Warnock drafted the Emergency Relief Act for farmers of color and included in the president's $1.9 billion COVID relief bill. While the act specifically addressed Black farmer issues, we see that the systemic change that are included in the Act for 2021 will serve the needs of other farmers as well as USDA employees. I thank you, and we will now turn to introducing, and I have that dubious responsibility to do so, Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock, Senator Cory Booker, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. And we would like for you all to speak in that order. And first on the agenda is Senator Warnock, and we welcome you today.
Well, thank you so very much, Brother Lucas, and it's great to be here with all of you. I wanted to first take a moment to thank the organizers of this event. Thanks to the Black Belt Justice Center, the Cancel Pickford Debt Campaign, and the USDA Coalition of Minority Employees and Justice for Black Farmers Group. All of you have been doing the hard work and the heavy lifting for such a long time. And for that, I'm humbled and grateful. I want also to thank farmers and experts who have taken the time to join us today, especially to Georgia's own Eddie Slaughter, whose farm is in beautiful Buena Vista, Georgia. I struggle every time. I know that's one pronunciation that I've been corrected many times, but I have great memories of my time there during the campaign. I want to thank farmers of color across the country who have weathered storms long before the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our agriculture industry. Before diving into this historic relief package and its Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act, I think it's important to provide a quick visual of how Black farmers have been affected over the last century. It is a story that is not told nearly enough. In 1920, there were over 925,000 Black farmers. 1920, 925,000 Black farmers. Today, that number is less than 50,000. Today, Black farmers represent less than 2% of farmers. And it is estimated that Black farmers have lost over 80% of their land from 1910 to 2007. And those gathered here today know that this has had a dramatic impact on the ability to pass along generational wealth and to ensure Black families can keep farming. A conservative estimate shows that the value of lost Black land is close to $350 billion. And so this once in a century pandemic and economic turndown that followed has both illuminated and exacerbated long-standing disparities in our government that have left certain communities behind, particularly Black farmers and farmers of color. And that's why I'm so glad to join my brother and my sister, Senators Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, who've been on the front line on these fights in so many ways, along with our partners, Senators Lujan and Debbie Stabenow, who chairs the Agriculture Committee. I'm grateful that we were able to get this bill passed in the COVID-19 relief package, contrary to what some suggested during that long vote-a-rama, is exactly where it should be in the American Relief Plan. While there's more work left to be done to reverse the impact of decades of discrimination against Black farmers and other farmers of color, today we gather and we pause to recognize this important first step toward leveling the playing field and righting some of these injustices. The $5 billion federal investment will provide $4 billion in direct payment for outstanding debts and $1 billion in investments for activities and projects to help our nation's farmers of color recover from the pandemic and thrive beyond it. The Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act begins the process of leveling the playing field for farmers and farming families of color to help them not only recover from the devastation of these crises, but to give them the tools and the assistance to thrive after years of suffering. And for that, we can't get relief directly to farmers quickly enough. The passage of the American Relief Plan will make a profound difference in the lives of these farmers in every corner of the state of Georgia and all across the country. Let me be clear again, this is COVID relief. And when it comes to ensuring that the federal government is working for all farmers, there is no time to waste. In addition to helping our country's farmers, this legislation helps the rural communities that surround our precious farmland. That is to say that by helping Black farmers and farmers of color, we support rural communities and the communities in which they're located. And so that investment has the ability to lift all of these communities and to provide them crucial support and crucial infrastructure. As a voice for Georgia in the United States Senate, as chair of the Senate Agriculture Subcommittee on Commodities, Risk Management, and Trade, I am proud and I will continue to be a champion for agriculture, as well as my state's continued leadership and innovation at the forefront of our nation's agriculture industry. All farmers need and deserve a seat at the table, and this legislation moves us in that direction. Thank you so very much for joining us today. We're going to do everything we can to try to get this right for farmers of color and to make sure that this relief is allocated swiftly, transparently, and equitably. And with that, I'm happy and proud to turn the microphone over to my brother, Senator Cory Booker.
Senator Reverend Warnock, I am grateful for your words and your introduction. I want to start off by saying thank you to Tracy McCurdy and Lawrence Lucas and to all the Black farmers who are speaking on this call. I want to thank all those who organized this and the other farmers and advocates who've been fighting for decades for justice, who were the true driving force behind getting this historic loan forgiveness and other assistance enacted into law this month. Senator Warren and I introduced the Justice for Black Farmers Act last Congress. I made it a top priority to get debt forgiveness enacted into law as quickly as possible because I knew that because of COVID-19, we were facing yet another generation of Black farmers who were dealing with foreclosure and land loss. And then in January, truly, I was blessed, the United States Senate was blessed, America was blessed to have Reverend Warnock come and join us in the Senate and to join in this fight. His spirit, his determination, heck, he doesn't wear a cape, but he is heroic in this effort and so many efforts for justice, and was critical in leading loan forgiveness across the finish line. I, of course, as he mentioned and was mentioned earlier, I want to thank Senator Stabenow, Chairman David Scott, and of course, Secretary Vilsack, who were all critical in getting this done. Reverend Warnock went through the history, so I won't repeat his statistics, but I will say this. As an African American, you can't find many Black folk who don't know about their roots. The story of Blacks in America is a story of a deep connection to the land. From the wealth of this nation that sprang forth from our agricultural might and land that was worked by slaves, to the history of sharecropping, to Blacks who owned so much land, over 1 million African Americans. My grandparents graduated from HBCU focused on agriculture, University of Arkansas and Pine Bluff. My grandfather, part of the northern migration to urban centers like Detroit, where my family went, never lost that spiritual connection to the land. The stories in the Black community of that severed connection, of the forces that forced Blacks off of land that they owned, stripped them of that pride of land ownership, the overtly racist policies of the USDA, the exclusion of Blacks whole scale from programs that helped generations of Americans settle land like the Homestead Act. That history, that pain, that unfairness, that injustice still is like a festering wound on the soul of America. This is an important step. And I want to say, after suffering decades of discrimination by the USDA, the Black farmers who had somehow managed to hold on were already in a weakened financial position when COVID-19's pandemic hit. And once again, these Black farmers did not receive the help they needed and deserved from a USDA with such a history of discrimination. Of the tens of billions of dollars of COVID assistance payments that were provided by the Trump USDA to farmers, based upon USDA data, it appears that less than 1% of that money was provided to Black farmers and other farmers of color in total. So today, while approximately 13% of all borrowers are delinquent on FSA direct loans, 35%, or almost 3 times as many, Black farmers with FSA direct loans are in default and were facing the loss of their farms to foreclosure if Congress had not passed this loan forgiveness provision. This was urgently needed. This is directly related to a fairness in COVID relief. And if we did not have this program, the painful tradition in our country, the wretchedness of our land policy would have continued into this chapter. This is a day to recognize a step towards justice, a step on a very long journey that we still have to go. So now that Congress has passed this law and provided the funding to the USDA, I believe the USDA has 3 areas of priority focus. Number one, first, debt forgiveness should happen quickly. People are holding on by threads. Black farmers and other farmers of color have had this cloud hanging over them for far too long, and loans should be forgiven without delay. Second, before deciding how to allocate the additional $1 billion of assistance, the USDA should provide a meaningful opportunity for input directly from Black farmers and other farmers of color. And finally, number 3, while the upcoming loan forgiveness will provide a lifeline for thousands of Black farmers, we must acknowledge that for thousands of others who suffer from discrimination, this help has come too late. And so this bill authorizes the USDA to provide financial assistance to former borrowers who already lost their land. And the USDA should make them a top priority. I want to conclude by saying that this is a truly historic step towards justice. It is that step on a long and critical journey, not just to address issues for Black farmers and other farmers of color, but for all of us Americans. We all are invested in it because we live in a nation where injustice anywhere is, as King said, truly a threat to justice everywhere. This is only a first step. We must provide more access to credit and land for these farmers who have suffered this long history of wretched and painful discrimination. I plan with my allies and friends to fight to have the rest of the Justice for Black Farmers Act enacted into law as quickly as possible. I'm honored now to pass it off to my friend and my ally, my partner on so many things, from bills relating to criminal justice reform, the bills related to economic justice. I think we are doing a good job of what John Lewis calls good trouble. So I pass it off to the person who's often the Cagney to my Lacey, the Starsky to my Hutch. When we're having a lot of fun, I'm the Laverne to her Shirley. I pass it off to the great Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, thank you, Cory. You left out Bert and Ernie on that one. Oh, but it's so good to be here with you today. It's good to be here with everyone. It is an honor to be with you in community today. You know, I want to start by thanking Reverend Warnock for his leadership on the provisions in the American Rescue Package. You know, the fact that he won his election down in Georgia, along with Senator Ossoff, is what gives us the opportunity to be here today. If he hadn't gotten out there and fought and won that seat, we wouldn't be here because we wouldn't have had the votes for this package and we wouldn't have gotten this done. And this is the thing, his election gives us a chance to change. And now Reverend Warnock is delivering that change. I also have to thank my partner in so many things, Senator Booker, for his leadership on the provisions in the American Rescue Package. And I want to thank him for his long work on ending discrimination in the USDA and his work on the legislation and leading the legislation in the Justice for Black Farmers Act. These two men are truly the heroes of the day. I also have to offer a special thank you to the Black farmers, to Lawrence Lucas, and to Justice for Black Farmers. When I ran for president and was putting together an agriculture plan, you reached out to me and you taught me about the history and you taught me about the need, and you reminded me that justice is worth fighting for every single day. So I'm grateful to you for what you have taught me, and grateful for the change that we're going to make together. American agriculture was built on the backs of Black farmers, but Black farmers have experienced a long history of government-sponsored discrimination, which has robbed Black farmers of economic opportunity and has decimated the population of Black farmers in America. Tackling the legacy of discrimination against Black farmers and advancing a new generation of diverse farmers is long overdue. You've heard the highlights of the American Rescue Plan, $5 billion in direct USDA debt relief and related services for Black farmers and farmers of color. Money that will not only bring debt relief, but it will also be used for programs to help root out discrimination at the USDA and provide funding for HBCUs to expand their agriculture research. But let's be clear, this is not our end point. This is our beginning point. We need to do more. We need to do more to restore Black farmland. We need to do more to create economic justice for historically marginalized farmers and ranchers. We need to do more to provide access to land and credit to achieve a new farm economy that works for everyone. This relief package marks our first victory for Black farmers, but not our last. So it's good to be with you. And Alex, I think you pick it up at this point.
Great. Thank you, Senator Warren. Really appreciate it. We only have a few minutes for Q&A with our senators. They have to leave shortly. So we'll take questions in the order that they come in, and please include your name, your outlet, your question, and who it should be directed to. So Asia Kane with EWG will read it on your behalf. I believe we already have 2 questions in the queue. Asia, what's our first question?
Sure. The first question is with Seth Bodine, reporter with NPR member station KOSU in Oklahoma in Harvest Public Media. His question is, many farmers were forced to get loans outside of the USDA and had to get other kinds of loans or even 5 credit cards. What are you pushing legislatively or for Tom Vilsack to do to fix this?
I could take that. I don't want to jump in, but I'll go ahead. So number one, there's a number of issues in the Justice for Black Farmers Act that could help farmers who already have debt get credit at better rates, where they could refinance many of these loans, get out from under the private loans. Number one. Number two, we're looking for a lot more resources. Period, where Black farmers are able to get grants to participate in other USDA programs that helps them bring new revenue streams. So there's a larger vision for both Black farmers, and frankly, as Senator Warnock and Senator Warren both know, there's a vision for American farming in and of itself. We have a crisis in American farming, that this corporate consolidation we see going on, hurting ranchers and farmers, the horrible systems in America, like the tournament system that drives so many people into unconscionable debt. We have a larger agricultural agenda to help a lot of farmers who are in economic distress. So from the Justice of Black Farmer Act to a lot of the other things that we're doing, and I know I've got 2 incredible leaders that are going to help lead the charge in the next ag bill. We have got to take a look at the crisis for independent farmers all across America, the corporate concentration that is so crippling American farming, where the farmers now get such a fraction of the dollar, far less of the consumer dollar than they got just 25 years ago. And so our efforts are going to be comprehensive, that will affect specifically Black farmers, but a lot of other farmers in America that are in crisis as well.
Senator Booker, I have a follow-up question to that. How would we fix our subsidy system to level the playing field between white and Black farmers?
So look, again, I could go. This is a real touch point for me about what we've done to American farming, and how sort of the corporate industrialization of our farming systems as a whole is so broken. And Again, Senator Warren is leading so much of our antitrust work in the Senate. This has affected everywhere from pharmacies to big pharma. And it's something that we're going to be focusing on. But specifically for African-American farmers, we are in a spiraling crisis that is getting far worse. That's why this effort in this COVID package led by Senator Warnock was so critical in the now. But as the question indicates, we have more work to do. And so I again repeat, there are other elements of the Justice for Black Farmer bill that from last Congress that Senator Warren and I introduced that have to be put in place to affect Black farmers. And we have a vision, the three of us have a vision, not just for helping Black farmers now, not just for helping those Black farmers, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that have lost their farms to get back to farming, but we have a vision for a whole new generation of Black farmers to expand access. And that's everything from a specific land grant program all the way to one of the most exciting parts of the bill to myself and the feedback I've gotten is to have almost like an apprenticeship program for disadvantaged non-traditional farmers to learn and to get on. So from a land grant program that can help with everything from urban farming to large tracts of land, all the way to getting and training a new generation of farmers. So that that data that Reverend Warnock gave out at the beginning, that massive loss of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of valued land over the last century, we can start reversing those trends where Black farmers are a percent of the overall farming force in America that reflects the population of Black people as a whole.
Can I just add to what Senator Booker said? He's covered basically the right approach, but I just want to draw a line between these. If we enforce our antitrust laws, if we break up big ag that has a stranglehold on our farming industry, then we create more opportunities for mid-sized farms, more opportunities for small farms. And here's the part I want to underline: more opportunities for new farms and new farmers. You know, a lot of folks who are on the land right now are aging off. They're not going to be there in another 10 years. And so this is a moment when we have an opportunity to change the direction of farming in America. We have a moment when we can open up opportunity, and making sure that that opportunity is open for Black farmers, making sure that young people see a real future in farming is a part of what Senator Booker and Senator Warnock and I are working on, not just in this relief package, but this is what our future legislation is about. We have a long arc vision in this one.
Thank you, Senator. Asia, who's our next question from?
From Megan Boynton with Bloomberg Government. Considering that the American Rescue Plan Act was recently made law with several similar provisions to aid farmers of color, what specific policies within the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act still need to be implemented to help those ag producers further?
Just real quick, again, I laid out in my opening remarks what I think the next urgent 3 steps really are. Is one, move quickly, as with a lot of aspects of this incredible legislation. The quicker we can move, the more likely we meet the urgency and the emergency of the time. Second, it's just really important that we allocate an additional $1 billion as is outlined in this legislation. But I still just believe, and I've talked to Secretary Vilsack about this, that the input from Black farmers, as the saying goes, it can't be about us without us. We need to make sure that African American farmers are in dialogue to make sure this is done right, and that there's a vision for the field. And then finally, again, there are a lot of other key provisions in the bill that Senator Warren and I worked on the last Congress, and now with the leadership, extraordinary leadership of Reverend Warnock, I have a lot of hope that other provisions of the Justice for Black Farmers Act can begin to get incorporated. I know all three of us have talked to Secretary Vilsack about what he could do. That in fact, I challenged him when he was just a nominee to be the greatest champion Black Americans have ever seen for Black farmers in the secretary role of the Agricultural Department. And I'm really hopeful that between Biden, Harris, Vilsack, and the champions we have in the Senate and the House, especially now the extraordinary ascendancy, historic of Congressman Scott to the chairmanship, African American to the chairmanship of the House Ag Committee. This is an extraordinary moment, I think, where we can make tremendous strides towards justice.
And I just want to say that, now that we've passed the legislation, it's not hands off for us. We'll stay engaged. I chair the subcommittee on commodities, risk management, and trade. But, part of our job is to provide oversight. I've also had conversations with Secretary Vilsack, and he's aware of some of the concerns even raised by Black farmers and farmers of color, that are informed by a long history that has frayed trust between Black farmers, farmers of color, and the USDA. And so we know that there's a lot of work to be done to demonstrate that we're serious here and to make good on the promise. And so know that we will remain engaged and connected to see this all the way through.
The next question is from Laura Riley with the Washington Post. Placing them together is so, hey y'all, can you flesh out programs that may be included in the $1 billion? For instance, how could this fix Harris property?
Well, I'll put a couple of the pieces to it and let the other two senators add in. One is that money is going to go to the HBCUs to help strengthen and develop the ag programs at those schools. When Senator Booker and I were talking earlier about the long arc, about how we both want to create opportunity by breaking up big ag, creating a better opportunity for mid-sized and smaller farmers in America. But it's also on the supply side, more young people brought into agriculture. And part of what this money going into the HBCUs is it will help sponsor research about farming to help small farmers, sustainable farming. But it also gives more young people a chance to try their hand, a chance to come in and talk to people who are in agriculture and to see agriculture in its 21st century role. So that's going to be a part of it. The question on heirs property, this is a tough one, but the $1 billion it's an open-ended to try to determine how we can better address past discrimination. This is one that is worked through the courts. In the bill that I have with Senator Booker, we address this more directly through legislation, but it at least creates the opportunity to be able to reach out to more people, to get more lawyers involved in it, to be able to assist those who've lost their property and had it taken away from them through discriminatory practices of generations past. Senator Booker made the point as we started that as much as we celebrate being here today, and we do, we recognize it is too late for many. And so a part of what we have to address going forward is how we grapple with the discrimination that took so much away from so many and continues to have effects on those families and those communities for generations to come. We are at the beginning of a long journey, but a journey toward justice.
In addition to that, let me say that part of what will come out of the $1 billion is technical assistance.
Yep.
And support for land acquisition and credit repair, all of these things. Also, there's a racial commission that will pay attention and and get engaged with the long history of racial discrimination within the USDA, and will be focused sharply on how we correct both the discrimination of the past and the remaining structures that continue that long legacy. Let me just say, I'm going to have to pivot in just a second in order to get on this plane to get up to DC, but it's wonderful to be here.
Great. Thank you, Senator. We have time for one last question. Asia?
From Zemina Bustillo to Senator Warren and Senator Booker, what are the future plans for the Justice Black Farmers Act, including a Republican co-sponsor or House companion?
We're going to get it passed. That's our job. We get out and talk about it. That's why we're here today. And we talk about it on the floor of the Senate. We reach out and talk to people of both parties, but make no mistake, we're not looking for a veto from the other side. We're looking to get something done. This is justice. This should not be a partisan issue. This is what is right and what is needed going forward. And we're just going to be fighting for it. Right, Cory?
Well, I just want to add, amen, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Warren. Thank you, Senator Booker. Thank you, Senator Warnock. Really appreciate your time. I know there are a number of other questions that were in the queue that we weren't able to get to, but we'll try to get to those in writing. And if you have any questions or you haven't heard back from folks, just email me at alex@ewg.org and I'll make sure we connect you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tracy, back to you.
There is an African proverb that goes, "The axe forgets what the tree remembers." Our Pickford legacy farmers are our mighty oak trees that carry collective memory. For this portion of our press event, we will have a panel discussion with our Pickford legacy farmers. We will start our panel discussion with Ms. Bernice Atchison. Ms. Atchison is a farmer from Chilton County, Alabama, and a Pickford historian. So I think we're just trying to get everyone on. It's going to be a panel discussion. Hi, Ms. Atchison. Ms. Atchison, you testified at numerous congressional hearings and federal court hearings regarding the implementation of the Pickford consent decree. You also maintain the roster of the 6,906 Black farmers that were denied outright on their claims for recovery. Can you speak more about the devastating impact of the Pickford lawsuit on Black farmers, land ownership, and generational wealth? Ms. Atchison, can you please unmute yourself so we can hear you? Thank you so much. Oh, you're still on.
Unmute.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. How you doing this morning, Miss Tracy?
Doing great. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here. With the Pickford case, it has been a long, hard journey. We that are Pickford legacy farmers, we have lost so much. And I can say for myself, it has robbed me of land and wealth. It has robbed me of my best friend, my husband, my children's father. It has robbed my children of their legacy that has been in the family for more than ever since 1886. My children can no longer play on that hollow ground. The taking of that land caused my husband an early death, and we suffered pervasively. I began fighting, really fighting in this case in 1999 in the consent decree where we had Pickford 1, and we didn't get any resolution in that Pickford 1 because many of us was denied entry into Pickford 1 for one reason or another. And many of us proved that we were on-time filers, but they was consistently saying that we were not on-time filers. There was many major changes in the consent decree when the farmers were not there. That was between the judge and the lawyers that caused for poor results for the Black farmers. And in 2004, Congress summoned me to testify because of the no notice provision. I had been trying to get claim sheets and election forms for the peoples in this county, and they were refusing to send them. So eventually, Congress notified me that they wanted me to testify before them in November of 2004. And because of that 2004 testimony and the proof that we were able to submit to Congress, we ended up with a Pickford 2. Congress declared that our fundamental due process rights were broken and that we had a right to be heard, but our lawyer had bargained away our constitutional right for discovery. And because we didn't have any discovery, how can you win a case? Most lawyers know that you never give up discovery for your client. Pickford 2 was born in 2008 due to the Farm Bill. And in that Farm Bill came a rider, which was NRA, Black Farmers Litigation. In 2008, President Obama, who was a senator, and Arthur Davis sponsored a rider on the 2008 Farm Bill, which gave us what we now know as the NRA Farm Discrimination Litigation, because Pickford 2 was never litigated in the court. Most people don't realize Pickford 2 was never litigated in the court. So it ended up in the NRA, which they call a new cause of action. We was given a fairness hearing September 1, 2011 in NRA, and the payout was in 2013 with more claimants than actual farmers being paid. And of course, Congress declared that because of the lack of representation and accountability, that was why we had a poor outcome in that NRA Black Farmers litigation. We have been struggling, trying to get justice for the Black farmer all of these years, sort of 22 years from the date of the signing of the consent decree. After being notified that there was 2 tracts, only one class tract was allowed to be paid in the NRA. Most people don't know that. There was 0 claim B tracts paid or litigated in the NRA Black Farmers litigation.
Ms. Atkinson. Okay, we're going to have to move on for the other
Okay.
farmers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Tracy?
Thanks again, Ms. Atkinson. Now we're going to hear from Elder Bernard Bates, a farmer from Hill City, Kansas. Mr. Bates has the distinction of being a descendant of the Nicodemus, Kansas Black farming community. In 1983, he wrote President Ronald Reagan and US Senator Bob Dole, detailing the discrimination he experienced with the local Farmers Home Administration in Graham County. As a result of USDA's racist actions against you, Mr. Bates, he lost 950 acres of land. Mr. Bates did not receive any compensation under the Pigford lawsuit and remains $200,000 in debt. Under the provision in the American Rescue Plan Act, the $1 billion provision, financial assistance is available to farmers of color who have experienced discrimination with USDA. Mr. Bates, can you speak about how much of these funds should go to restoring Pigford legacy farmers who lost land and were never fairly compensated for the economic harm caused by USDA?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for having me. There's enough money we can get paid for the damages we have suffered. So I hate to put a figure on that. This is a great moment. Thanks to Pelosi, Schumer, President Biden, and President Biden and Vice President Harris, the U.S. Senators, and the hard work of Attorney Tracy McKirby. It's about time, and it appears that some relief of compensation for us Black farmers is near. I'm Bernard Bates, 84 years old, a Pigford legacy farmer, and I have farmed in the heartlands of America since 1949 in the all-Black historical town of Nicodemus, Kansas. In 1969, my father and I purchased my grandparents' the Bates family homestead of 200 acres. This is when we were told that the Bates family was the first Black family that got a loan from the Federal Farm Land Bank in Kerwin, Kansas. Because of our Negro race, starting in 1929 with my father, we have both fought against racial discrimination for about 122 years. My battle began in 1956, and I have been continually denied to even get an application just to fill out for a farm loan from FMHA and USDA. We practically farmed over 2,000 acres. In the late 70s, my crops were destroyed due to weather and other circumstances beyond my control. I was denied an extension and therefore was foreclosed on when my 950 acres of land and farm equipment was all illegally taken from us. Wheat that was stored in our bins, they even hauled it away, which nearly killed me. My livelihood was taken, my credit was ruined, and we were left indigent and in debt. I wrote discrimination letters to and complaint to Senator Bob Dole and Reagan, Ronald Reagan, President. As respondent, President Reagan closed down the Civil Rights Office there in DC. On the basis and status of my case, my name was used to initiate the Paper One case. I kept fighting for my hard rights and reparations, but to this date, I have not received any justice or compensation for my hard work, not even a thank you. Black farmers like myself have been treated unlawful, unjust, and illegal due to loss of land, economics, harm, mental stress, and irreparable hard work. We could never be paid what we are owed under this $1 billion provision. Financial assistance is finally available for farmers of color. We are definitely owed to some kind of relief from the United States government. Thank you. Praise the Creator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bates, for sharing your land memory with us and your thoughts regarding the 1 billion. You're absolutely right. 1 billion is not sufficient. And that's why we're going to continue to fight for additional funding for the Pickford legacy farmers to restore them. At this time, we're going to speak to Carolyn Jones, farmer and executive director for Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance. Ms. Jones, as a farmer and executive director of the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance, can you share your thoughts on priorities regarding the $1 billion provision to root out systemic racism within USDA?
Wow, Tracy, I really need to kind of collect myself right now. After listening to Ms. Atkinson and Mr. Bates, and I already knew these stories, but just hearing them again and being able to see them deliver such, wow, profane testimonies it's a little bit much for me right now. But I'll, USA. On behalf of the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of those involved in the passage of this historic bill. And also to thank you for allowing me to be able to speak today on behalf of our farmers. Heirs property issues are issues that are facing the Black community, and with the question of being an urgent priority, in my opinion, every issue in the Black community is an urgent priority. So I don't like to put one above the other as far as saying this is the most urgent, because in our communities, all of these issues work together. They're all in sync with each other. And if you fix one, then you've got to fix the other, plus you've got to fix the other. And it's really hard to put some of this into words. We've worked with farmers now for the last 12 years. My husband and I are farmers, and we've been farming since the 70s, the late 70s. And we've gone through many, many bouts of discrimination with the USDA here in Mississippi. So we know what other farmers who've gone through this, we know your feelings, and we're here to be with you, and we're here together to make sure that the discrimination within USDA comes to an end. I am so sick of being told that we need to wait. This needs to wait, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, when other farmers are not told the same thing. And that's why we are where we are now. So what I really want to say is that in establishing the Racial Equity Commission, if it doesn't have enforcement power, then I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to do, or how much is going to be able to be accomplished for the Black communities. And again, we have to be able in our communities to have access to capital. You can put all of the programs in place that you want, but if we don't have access to capital in our communities, if there's not someone in our communities that is being able to make loans to people that look like us, being made by people that are in need of those loans, then I don't really see a whole lot that's going to happen in our community. We're going to have to be able to address all of the issues facing the Black community, not just the heirs property issues.
Okay, Ms. Jones, I want to say thank you for your time. And
Thank
we'll
you.
move on. Thank you very much.
We'll next hear from Elder Anthony Segue, a sugarcane farmer from Alberia Parish, Louisiana. Elder Segue, this question is for you. As a result of the failures of the Pickford lawsuit, your family's debt ballooned from $525,000 to over 1,650,000. Can you share how the Biden-Harris USDA foreclosure moratorium impacted your family, and also how the debt cancellation provision of the American Rescue Plan Act will impact your family?
Well, it's just about to put us out of business. And if we can get our land back, we're a family of four generation. We are, that 300 acres are 1/5 of what the 5 brothers and no sisters. And that's our hard working ability. And we farm almost 3,500 acres of cane for a couple of years, and then we had started getting in trouble, overgrown. And you know, I'm 85 years old, and I'm just so glad I have this opportunity to sit down and answer any questions y'all have.
Good morning, Tracy. My name is Sean Siggy. I'm helping my uncle out. When the moratorium was signed, it gave a sign of relief for our family. After 40 years, I was a 5th generation on the sugarcane farm. And after 40 years of the unfair practices that was going on in the area, it gave the family hope again. While going through the foreclosure proceedings, it just gave a little light. The relief plan gives us the opportunity to keep the family's land with the family. It leaves the heritage for all the hard work that the family has done throughout those years, and it leaves that heritage and legacy with the family that they work so hard for. As everyone on here knows, the unfair practices gives a heartache to these farmers who have worked so hard through their years to see them being treated unfairly when opportunities for other farmers were given and not to them. So the moratorium and the relief plan has given hope to our family again. And from our uncle, who is 85, it pleases him to see that he's still around, as 3 of his other brothers are not, to see that there's finally going to be some justice for what has happened. And we appreciate all the hard work Tracy and Lawrence, y'all have been fighting this cause, and to the senators who provided such great leadership in the Congress. We appreciate all that hard work, and there's still a lot to do, because we want to make sure that this never happens to future farmers, and that future farmers have an opportunity to share equal practices while farming.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
Mr.
very much. Thank you very much.
Hello.
And I think it's really important to stress that the American Rescue Plan Act must be implemented swiftly, because with respect to the CUs, the Biden's foreclosure moratorium, suspended a foreclosure proceeding against the CU family. And so we want to make sure that the debt is canceled before the foreclosure moratorium is lifted. So that's really important, the urgency of USDA responding swiftly and canceling the debt on the federal level and through Washington, D.C. instead on the local level. Okay, so the next question is for Elder Eddie Slaughter, a farmer from Buena Vista, Georgia. Mr. Slaughter, this question is for you. Over 17,000 Black farmers are delinquent in their loans to USDA, ranging from 5 to 30 years. The Justice for Black Farmers Act includes language regarding the return of offsets. Can you speak about the economic devastation caused by USDA offsetting your Social Security, disability, and peanut subsidy payments? How did this impact your ability to farm over the last 20 years? Are you there, Mr. Slaughter? Here you go. Oh, you have to take the mute off. Yeah, mute. Oh. We're having difficulty.
Y'all hear me? Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now. We can hear you, Mr. Slaughter. Thank you.
All right. Okay. First of all, the offset was a system that was set up for farmers that was delinquent on loans to USDA. But what they did, they took that offset and it began to be a tool to retaliate against Black farmers that participated in the Pigford lawsuit. You know, and for 9 years, USDA offsetted my Social Security disability check for about $300 a month for 9 years. Not only that, when USDA bought out the peanut quota, and they paid all these farmers, especially white farmers, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. We didn't get anything. My $7,900 was offsetted. When they went and they bought out the tobacco allotment, white farmers got hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. Ours was offsetted. Black farmers got nothing. All our subsidy payments was offsetted. When you file your income tax return, you know, your red road pension, they was offsetting all of our everything. You didn't get no income tax return. It went to pay down your debt. It was offsetted. And your red road pension was offsetted. And when you think about economic disaster, when you look at the offset program, Black farmers like to refer to it as a form of economic terrorism. For example, when you look at what happened to us with the offset monies, all of this offset money, it didn't go to pay down the principal debt, but they put it against your interest. So therefore, none of this was done any good to pay down our debt. It was just to make us debtor slaves that we could never pull ourselves out of the hole that they put us in. And the other thing too is that I would just like to say that, first of all of the senators, I want to thank all of you all, but I want to, especially being from Georgia, want to, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, I feel that God has called you to the Senate for such a time as this. Right now, this is the planting season. March the 20th was the first day of spring. Less than 2 weeks from now is Good Friday. This is the planting season, and you need to understand as a farmer, it's critical to get your farming and get your seeds in the ground on time. When you're needing seeds, fertilizer, and fuel, normally Black farmers would be depending on their income tax return this time of the year to be able to buy this, to be able to plant on time. And if this here is implemented in an expeditious way, then this would be the first time in 20 years that many, many Black farmers was able to plant on time so that they could harvest on time. And we need to understand that what has been done to us, offset program has really ran us out of farming, and it has devastated our finances. Our credit so bad that we couldn't even go in there and borrow enough money to buy peanuts. So it has really devastated us. And when you look at your roof is leaking, your credit so bad you can't go nowhere to get it. And twice when I was facing foreclosure of my home, it was my sons and my daughters that had to come in and save us because of the whole economic situation of all Black farmers. The offset monies of all farmers should be turned to us immediately and right away because it has not gone to pay down the debt.
Okay, Mr. Slaughter. Okay, Eddie, we're going to have to cut you off, but let's go on to our next one, and I appreciate you being on today.
Yes, sir.
So our last question is for Lloyd Wright, Elder Lloyd Wright. He is the former director of USDA Office of Civil Rights, and a farmer from Westmoreland County, Virginia. Mr. Wright, last week on a White House BIPOC call, Black, Indigenous, People of Color farmer call, Secretary of Agriculture Thomas Vilsack, stated that implementation of debt cancellation, the implementation of the debt cancellation provision of the American Rescue Plan Act would be a long, drawn out process. Can you speak about the necessity of implementation, accountability, and transparency at USDA? As a former director of civil rights at USDA, how does these three things impact the need for systematic change that is so badly needed at USDA under Secretary of Agriculture Thomas Vilsack and his administration?
Thanks, Tracy. I hope that when we refer to a long and drawn out process, I hope we're talking weeks and not months, and that Black farmers have had experience with long drawn out processes. I was director of civil rights for the Department of Agriculture when Pigfoot lawsuit started. That agreement provided that farmers would get debt relief. But after a long drawn out process in which FSA made the determination on who would get debt relief, only 371 of the over 22,000 farmers who applied for Pigfoot 1 actually received partial debt relief. And then during the process, the attorneys advised the farmers that since they were going to get debt relief, they didn't need to service their loans and make the payments. So at the end of 4 or 5 years of drawn out discussions, farmers finally discovered that they were not going to get debt relief. Many of them had accumulated interest and penalties to the extent that they lost farms that they would not have lost had there been no Pigfoot. So I tell folk, to a large extent, Pigfoot left many of our Black farmers in worse shape than they would have been had there not been Pigfoot to begin with. So I would hope that since we're dealing with a base that we should have in our record, because we know who have loans, there's no reason for the first portion of this, the debt forgiveness, to be long drawn out, should be immediate. Now, the $1 million of support services might take longer. Hopefully, USDA is now informing their counties that debt relief is coming and that there's a moratorium on. I was back there working when there was a moratorium on in the Department of Agriculture, but people out in the field were still foreclosing. USDA doesn't necessarily have control of those field offices. So I would hope that they're doing a job right now to tell folk that, number one, there is a moratorium and the debt will be forgiven. The other thing is that, as Slaughter pointed out, this is planting season. If we don't take steps immediately to help the social disadvantaged farmers, they won't get their crop in time. If you don't have your seed, fertilizer, chemicals, and et cetera for planting right now, you're already behind the 8 ball. And if you plant late, you're not going to get an adequate crop. So hopefully, in addition to dealing with this debt relief immediately in terms of weeks and not months, and certainly not years like they did on the Pigfoot, then we need to immediately start providing the services to Black farmers, as was pointed out by some of the others, so that they can have a successful year. This could be one of the first years where farmers have the potential to have a successful year. And if they start to deal with providing the services necessary, this could happen. But it needs to happen now. This doesn't need to be long and drawn out.
Okay, Lord, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Tracy?
Mr. Lucas, how do you want to handle the questions? We've kind of gone over with the time. I
don't think we have time for the questions, Tracy. I I think that we need to probably move on because of the time. If there's no time for questions from the press.
Okay, so then we could just, we'll make note of those questions and make sure that those questions are directed to community members and members within our coalition that can answer those questions.
Okay.
So that's how we will handle that. And so, Mr. Lucas, you can close this out then.
Well, I want to say I feel very awkward closing it out because Tracy and there have been many others, but I can't say thank you enough. And for Black Belt for taking on and working with other groups such as EWG to make this happen. I want to close by saying one thing. The Emergency Relief Act for Farmers of Color and the Justice of Black Farmer Act of 2021 is the most important piece of legislation since the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We are pleased to be a part of helping to make this legislation a part of the American civil rights history. And what I want to say to many employees, women who've been abused and sexually abused and assaulted and raped at USDA, I want you to know that employees at USDA, I want you to know that you are included in this journey for justice. And I want to thank everyone who participated in this conference call. And I want to thank all the participating and all the groups that have been a part of this. So Tracy, I think that I can't close this out without you saying a few words.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Lucas. I also wanted to thank the Environmental Working Group for providing allyship and solidarity and communication support for our event today. I also want to thank Bond Events for assisting us, for making sure that this press event really was centered in the lived experiences of our farmers. And I wanted to close out with a quote from Ms. Carolyn Jones, actually. Let me I want to interject here that a copy of the recording will be available to community members. And again, these questions that have come up in the chat, we will definitely address them and respond to you in a timely manner regarding those questions. If you need to reach out to us directly, feel free to email me. Although my number is out there, you can email me at tmccurdy, TMCCURTY @blackbeltjustice.org. And so I wanted to leave and ground the conclusion of our press event with our farmer, Carolyn Jones, who's been a wonderful mentor to me. And as I shared during our planning calls, I'm deeply, deeply inspired by the tenacity of our Pigford legacy farmers, because again, the media loop is that this is something that just happened, but our farmers have been fighting for over 30 years for restorative land justice from USDA, and many of them have ascended on to the land of the ancestors without restorative land justice from USDA. So here is the quote. In the words of our late Honorable John Lewis, ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. Then this part is from Carolyn Jones. The passage of this historic bill is the coming together of many generations to seek justice for our farmers, our communities, and our future. Thanks again for participating in our press event.